Hey, Bulls and Bears. My name is JJ. Welcome to Bull Boom Bear Bust. We're back with another dose of economic reality. Yes, the economy is continuing to implode. The economic collapse continues. The financial crisis 2.0 gets deeper and deeper every time we join you. Every time I bring these reports, things continue to get worse. Now, it may not look like it on the surface, and that's the dangerous thing about this. Actually, someone in comments kind of laid out the way this works, right? Things unwind or the economy declines in slow motion at first, but then at some point there's a collapse where things just really accelerate. So what they try to do, I think, what this person was getting at with that analysis, the slow motion, then the sudden collapse, is that they try to, and I'm talking about the news, the talking heads, the politicians, all of them, they try to hide this until the last minute. Once it gets to a point where they can no longer hide it, the cat's out of the bag, then they go ahead and just report it. The markets drop, chaos ensues, the layoffs escalate even more. But even before getting to that point, we're already in some really, really bad times here. Let's take a look at just some of the recent news here. Now, first of all, earnings. Earnings is down on average almost 4%. Now they're going to report, the great earnings, they're going to put those out there, but on average overall, corporate America earnings are down 4% average year over year. Some even more, but some better earnings, some worse earnings, but overall when you average it out, it's down about 4%. Now what they reported on, and I'm talking about the news, the media, the business news networks, is that earnings came in better than expected, right? With all these different companies, better than expected. And in some cases, it was better than last year. But on average, it was down about 4%. But what we heard for the most part was, oh, it's better than expected. So what they do is they put this number out there, this expected number. And if the numbers come in better than that, that's what's going to be reported. Hey, everything's fine. It's better than expected. But if you look behind the scenes, you pull back the curtain, companies are down about 4% last year on average. So there's just one example of many ways that they kind of hide this decline. And some people even see videos like mine and they say, what's this guy talking about? Everything looks fine. People are out shopping, spending money. Everything looks good. Nobody's got any problems. Well, yeah, it seems that way until you hit a point when they start admitting how bad things are. That's when the panic really ensues. You see, because a lot of this is about confidence. When people have confidence, they're more likely to go spend money. They're more likely to go out and get a loan and buy that house, buy that new car. When the business news is not so confident in their forecasts or in their news, then people are not so confident, right? People are very easily influenced, by what they see and what they hear. So just another example of how this economy, of this implosion, seems like it's slow motion. I mean, it is, because people have confidence right now. But even right now, if you ask about half the people, they feel like they don't trust the banks. So how much longer is confidence going to continue, even with half of the population right now? All right, but let's get into some other numbers here. We got a lot of news to get into. Here's something right here. This is out of Bloomberg. Credit crunch fuels 48-hour bankruptcy rush with 7 filings within 48 hours. Now already this year, 2023, we're on pace to be the worst year of all time. Worse than the financial crisis, worse than the dot-com bubble, as far as the number of business, retail bankruptcies, corporate bankruptcies. We're on pace to have over 200, and that's going to be worse than 2008, worse than the 2020 shutdowns. Credit crunch fuels 48-hour bankruptcy rush with 7 filings in 2 days. I believe that set a record. So we've got Vice Media out there as one of the companies. I think they were on a lot of different cable networks. I think they might have even had a YouTube channel. I'm not sure. Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And they call this a breakneck pace of restructuring that included once hot digital broadcaster Vice Media. Also another one was KKR and Company. And this was the largest number of filings on record for a 2-day period since 2008. Well, if you look at the total, it's already on pace to be worse than 2008. We're on pace to be over 200. So there's just another example, folks, of how bad things are, how much worse they're getting. But people want me to be more positive. Here's something positive. We're not doing as bad as Argentina. Argentina had to do a rate hike here because their year-over-year inflation is 108%. 108%. Wow. So you really have to, and that's the CPI number. So, I mean, if you look at the CPI here, we know that the numbers put out there through CPI are actually very underestimated, right? When they say inflation's 5, it's usually 10. When they say inflation's 6, it's usually 12. It's usually around half of what it really is if you look at a larger basket of goods that people have to consume and purchase. And that would be how they measured it back in the mid to late 80s. I think they changed the formula somewhere around there. Either way, they cherry pick the items that are used as far as the calculation for CPI. It's a completely bogus number, but it is the number that's being talked about on the news. So we have to talk about it here because that's the numbers that are put out there. But if you look behind the scenes, it's way worse than is being reported. So is it the same in Argentina? Is it worse than 108%? That's pretty scary. Folks, when you don't have any manufacturing, when you're highly dependent on imports, when you're creating money out of thin air to no end, this is the end game. And that's why I've always said I don't think inflation is done. Even when they first came out with this whole temporary inflation thing, we knew it was bogus, from the start. There's some people think that the U.S. dollar is going to be around for decades because all the other currencies in the world are also fiat currencies created out of thin air. So my interview a few days ago, he referred to it as the one-eyed king in the land of the blind, referring to the U.S. dollar. So there's people in that category that think that the U.S. dollar is going to be king forever, that nothing's going to dethrone the U.S. dollar. I think it's not going to last forever. I think it's going to be dethroned by hard assets. But how long and how much pain will we have to go through until we get there? Until us stackers, what we call ourselves, silver stackers, will finally be rewarded. We'll have to see. But my thoughts on that. Consumer debt passes $17 trillion for the first time, despite slide in mortgage demand. That's why I always laugh at the people that say, "Oh, we're paying for this through our taxes. The taxpayers are paying for this." No, taxpayers are not paying for this. You could drain everyone's checking account, and you still couldn't pay off all the debt that's out there. All the savings, all the checking, all the investments that people have, drain all that, and you still couldn't pay off the debt, the national debt I'm talking about. And add on top of that, $17 trillion in consumer debt. So it's impossible. It's impossible to pay off. The more money they print, it's printed and created as debt, by the way. So when they print it, it typically goes through the banking system, and therefore it just increases the debt, right? So people think that money being created is going to fix this. Actually, no, that's one of the big problems to begin with. It causes all this. Let's talk about this. This one here is by Susan Duclos. She's a economic writer. And here's what she put down. The numbers are being hidden by Americans by the media. Everyday staples are more than double the overall food inflation percentage that is being talked about on the mainstream media. And basically they're talking about how much higher food prices are than the CPI inflation. We're close to 8% year over year for the average food item, for the average food products. And this year over year numbers already on top of a higher number, because remember the 2022 numbers were up from 2021. So now we're up again compared to the last year number, which is up from the previous year. You see how this works? So they're going to say it's 5%, but if you look back 2 years, it would be up 10%. And then on top of that, they're saying that it's actually double the CPI, right? So it's insane across the board. You can't make it up. You can't explain this to people in a simple, easy way. It's very slick that the way they put this out there, right? Also think about all the crises in the past. How everything was fine up until the last minute. The regulators came out. And said, no, nobody saw this coming. It was impossible to see this coming. In the meantime, all you have to do is look at alternative media, and there's people all over the map, all over the place, saying exactly what's happening and predicting kind of the direction of the economy. The Empire Fed Manufacturing Survey collapsed in April, and get this, the biggest drop ever. The biggest drop ever. Again, worse than the financial crisis. How much more evidence do we need here that this economy is done? This economy is toast. Bottom line is, folks, be really careful with your spending. Watch where you keep your money. Maybe hold off on that big purchase because I'm still seeing some big deflationary signs here on the horizon with this credit crunch. And I think a lot of these car dealers are trying to get as much as they can out of these vehicles because they paid a lot for these vehicles over the past couple of years. A lot of the inventory on these lots right now, they really paid close to all-time highs for these new and used vehicles. And of course, I don't think they're going to be cutting prices very quickly, even though mortgage rates, I'm talking about homes and autos, mortgage rates are higher, vehicle loan rates are a lot higher. The prices aren't really crashing like people expected. But I think there was a few things, leading up to this. There was sellers being very, very reluctant to lower their prices because what do they hear? They hear, the recovery is around the corner. This inflation's temporary. So, of course, when you hear things like that, you're not going to go ahead and slash your asking price. But once everyone acknowledges that the economy is toast, once it's out there, that's when you start seeing the slow motion turn into the fast motion. And that's when people really panic. And that's when you start seeing a flood of inventory hit the markets, homes for sale, tons of cars for sale, price cuts, more job losses, more layoffs, and everything snowballs even worse. That's typically the way things are going to go down. What I think anyway. I had a customer at my job. We were talking about her finance. That's what I do. I work in finance. And basically, she complained about her insurance rates on her car insurance and home insurance too, but mostly car insurance. Every time she would join a company or get a new insurance, they would give her a nice price, an entry price. But then the next year, after it renewed, they would really bump up the price. So then she would go to another company. First year, fine. The next year, increase her price. No claims, no accidents, no tickets. Four times she's done this over 4 years. Every company, they give her a nice price for the first year, and then they try to increase it the next year, hoping the customers will be lazy and not want to shop around for a better rate. And I think companies probably make a lot of money off of that. But this particular customer wasn't having it, and she would change companies each year, 4 years in a row, because they did the rate increases, right? So we'll see what happens to her next year. If they'll get her current company, we'll see if they raise the rates. Anyways, be cautious with your money. Don't overspend. Try to get different quotes for different products. Especially insurance. There's hundreds of companies out there to choose from. I would at least get 5 or 6 quotes, before settling on an insurance company, home, auto, or whatever it is. Just one example of how to be careful, be cautious with your money, and be ready, because this economy is not coming back from the abyss. In fact, it's just going to get worse. 2023 is going to go down as the worst year in history, worse than the Great Depression. We'll have to see. People say Great Depression, that's crazy. There's not going to be any food lines. Well, no, you don't have food lines now. It's because you have people. Well, there are food lines, but the food lines would be even worse if you didn't have these little plastic cards that people could swipe. They get handed out. These cards to go buy things. But even with the cards, there are still people on food lines, and the food lines are getting longer and longer, right? So just a lot of signs out there, folks. There's no excuse not to be prepared for this. So hope everyone's doing well. We'll talk to you very soon, and appreciate every one of you being here, supporting this channel. And please come back for more. We'll talk to you soon. Big love. Bye for now. Keep stacking.